The Dharma talk today, Anzac Day 2004, will be on a koan called The Cushion. This koan is from the Himitsu Shobogenzo, which is one of the parts of Dogen's great work, the Shobogenzo. It's the 28 fascicle Shobogenzo. And I'm not sure who translated this. This was a sheet that I found this week when I was reorganizing our files. Some point Richard copied it and put it in the file, and so it doesn't actually have information about where it comes from, but it seemed like a good topic for our one-day sitting today. And this is the case. A monk asked Zen Master Yangshan Huizhi, "Can ultimate reality teach about itself?" Yangshan said, "There's nothing that I can tell you about this, but there is someone else who can." The monk said, "Where is this one who can teach it?" Yangshan pushed forward a cushion. When Kuei-shan heard about it, he said, "Huizhi brings out the activity of a sword." That's the case. And this also has pointers by Master Keizan, which I'll get into later. So, first of all, who are the protagonists in this story? There's Master Yangshan, and then Kuei-shan adds his comment at the end. These two masters are the joint founders of the Ikkyo school of Zen. And we'll start off with Yangshan. He's actually the student of Kuei-shan, but he's the first one in the story. So we'll begin with some background information about him. So his Japanese name is Kyozan Eijaku, and his dates are 807 to 883. He was the main disciple of Guishan, the other character in this koan that has a name. And Yangshan came from ancient Shaozhou, which is in Guangdong province, what we call Canton. His parents refused to give him permission to leave home and become a monk, so Yangshan demonstrated his resolve by cutting off 2 of his fingers and vowing that he would seek the true Dharma to repay his filial obligations. You can imagine the effect of something like this might have on the parents. It'd certainly get their attention. Accounts vary about where he first entered the clergy, but it is likely that he studied under Zen Master Bu Yutung, the abbot of Heian Temple in Guangzhou. After Yangshan received tonsure, but before receiving full ordination, he travelled north to visit the famous temples that existed in the area of modern Hunan and Jiangxi provinces. After travelling for a time, Yangshan resided and studied under teacher Danyuan Yingzhen, famous disciple of the national teacher Yanyang Huizhong. There he had his first great insight. Yangshan then travelled to study under Guishan Lingyo. Under him, he attained enlightenment and remained to become his foremost disciple. Teacher and student had the closest spiritual affinity. Their names were later combined to form the Guiyang school of Zen. The Japanized form of this is Ikkyo. It's more familiar perhaps to people. Eventually, moving to Mount Yang, Yangshan drew students from throughout the realm. And of course this is where his name came from, Yangshan. Masters often took the name of the mountain they lived on, or the region, the area, the city, or wherever they were. They'd take that name. And it's an interesting phenomenon because this association of the teacher with the place, they, in a sense, they lose their personal name and gain the name of something bigger than them, the place they live in. The Guiyang or Igyo school of Zen employed sacred symbols to convey Buddhist truths. According to tradition, the sixth ancestor himself was the source of these symbols. These symbols were passed to national teacher Nanyang and in turn to Danyuan, who gave the symbols in a secret manuscript to Yangshan. And there's a story here about this transmission which bears a little bit upon our koan, so I'll tell the story in a moment. But just say one more thing about the Igyo school. It was characterized by a kind of mellowness and quietness. Many of us, when we first learn about Zen, it's the stories of the Rinzai masters that we hear, and they're famous for their shouts and their striking the student. But this Igyo school was very different. This was not a part of this tradition at all. It was a subtle kind of teaching. And we'll see this in some of the exchanges that we're going to look at today. And one of the characteristics of the Igyo school is the use of circles. There are a number of koans that various people employ a gesture of a circle. And apparently there are also a whole collection of symbols also employing circles that were in this manuscript that was handed on to Yangshan. And this is the story. So this is before Yangshan went to work with Guishan, when he was still with Danyuan. Danyuan greatly esteemed Yangshan and said to him, "Previously, the national teacher Huizhong received the transmission of a total of 97 symbolic circles from the sixth ancestor. He in turn passed these to me, saying, 30 years after I've died, a novice monk will come from the south who will greatly revive this teaching. When that time comes, pass the teaching on to him and don't let it end. Today, I transmit them to you. You must uphold and preserve them." When he had finished speaking, he passed the secret text to Yangshan. After receiving and examining the text, Yangshan burnt it. One day, Danyuan said to Yangshan, "The symbols that I gave you are extremely rare, esoteric, and precious." Yangshan said, "After I examined them, I burnt them." Danyuan said, "This Dharma gate of ours can't be understood by most people. Only the Buddha, the ancestors, and all the holy ones can fully understand it. How could you burn it?" Yangshan said, "After examining it, I fully comprehended its meaning. Then there was no use keeping the text." Danyuan said, "Even so, when transmitting this to disciples, people of future times won't believe it." Yangshan said, "If you'd like another copy, that won't be a problem. I'll make another copy and give it to you. Then it won't be lost." Danyuan said, "Please do." Can you imagine this elderly teacher who was told by his teacher that a disciple would come who would preserve the teaching, and he was instructed by him to pass on this precious ancient text, who then discovers that his student has burnt it. You have to put this in the context also of Chinese culture where there was enormous veneration paid to texts. One never even would throw away a piece of paper with any writing on it. It was so revered. It would be carefully and respectfully burnt. So this teacher finds that his disciple has burnt this sacred text. But to Yangshan, it seems to be no big deal. He says, okay, I'll write it out again and I'll give it to you. Dan Yuan is very pleased, obviously, that this is going to happen. And what is this story pointing to? Is there anything inherently valuable in these marks on a page that were given to Yangshan? What if he hadn't understood them? Would they have been transmitted if he'd just received the document? The fact that he fully comprehended these symbols meant that he could reproduce them completely. So what was it that was transmitted? What was it he understood? I think here also of the Jungian view of symbols. Jung would emphasize over and over again in his writings that symbols were the best possible formulations we could make of something that was essentially beyond formulation. Something that can't be fully tied down, completely expressed. Here's the story of when Yangshan met his primary teacher, Guishan. Later, Yangshan went to practice under Guishan. Guishan asked Yangshan, "As a novice monk, do you have a host or not?" Yangshan said, "I have one." Guishan said, "Who is it?" Yangshan walked from west to east and then stood there erect. Guishan realized that Yangshan was extraordinary. Maybe you need to explain a little bit about this question that the teacher asks. Do you have a host or not? On the surface of it, it might be that the teacher is asking the student, do you have a teacher? Are you bound to any particular temple? But there's also an underlying meaning to this. In Zen, guest and host are used as metaphors for our mind. The host's the one who doesn't go anywhere, who's always there. It's our essential nature. The guest is the stuff that comes and goes. So this is also a testing question. He's trying to see what Yangshan's understanding is of the nature of his essential nature. What's he going to show me about this? And in this story, clearly Yangshan, he understands this underlying meaning, and he gives a beautiful demonstration of the host. He walks from west to east and then stands there erect. Yangshan asked Guishan, "What is the true abode of Buddha?" Yangshan said, "Think of the unfathomable mystery and return your thoughts to the inexhaustible numinous light." In another translation, this is given as the spark. When thoughts are exhausted, you've arrived at the source, where true nature is revealed as eternally abiding. In that place there is no difference between affairs and principle, and the true Buddha is manifested. Upon hearing these words, Yangshan experienced great enlightenment. It's interesting, this story, because mostly the stories we hear of the ancients, they come to awakening when hearing a sound or being struck or something, some very immediate physical thing. But here it's quite explanatory what Yangshan says. He says, "Think of the unfathomable mystery and return your thoughts to the inexhaustible numinous light. When thoughts are exhausted, you've arrived at the source, where true nature is revealed as eternally abiding. In that place there is no difference between affairs and principle. The true Buddha is manifested." It all is to do with readiness. What sparks us in our opening, our mind's opening, can be anything, even something quite wordy like this. If we're ready, if our mind is open. Now this is a story about Yangshan after he had become a teacher. Zen Master Yangshan entered the hall and addressed the monks, saying, "Each and every one of you, turn the light inward. Don't try to remember what I'm saying. For a beginningless eon you have faced away from the light and been shrouded in darkness. The roots of delusion are deep. They're difficult to cut off and uproot. So the Buddha established expedient means to grab your attention. These are like showing leaves to a crying child who imagines they're gold and thus stops crying." It's a good one for autumn. "You act as though you're in a shop where someone sells 100 goods made from gold and jade, but you're trying to weigh each of them. So you say that Shito had a real gold shop? Well, in my shop there's a wide range of goods. If someone comes looking for mouse turds, then I give him some. If someone comes looking for real gold, then I give it to him." What's he talking about here? Break it down a bit. First he says, the Buddha established expedient means to grab your attention. Expedient means are all the teachings, all the different forms of teaching. They're not the direct experience, but they're ways of grabbing our attention, getting us started on the path. And he says these are like yellow leaves given to a crying child who imagines they're gold and stops crying. So this is a beautiful image of skillful means. It's not the whole truth, but it's enough to stop the crying. Oh, what's that? And then addressing himself to the monks, he says, you think you're in a shop with all these different things you can choose from, and you're weighing them up, picking this and picking that. What's wrong with this approach? It's this weighing. We've got to get past our discriminating mind, and that's the danger of teachings, is that we latch onto them and use our intellect to try and understand them. We've got to go beyond the words. See the theme here in Yangshan's teaching, like he burnt the symbols. We've got to go beyond the symbols. Get to the real source of them. Where did they come from? What did they come out of? And he says, well, in my shop, mine's a general store. I've got all sorts of things in here. And I'll give you whatever you come looking for. If you want mouse turds, that's what you'll get. If you want real gold, that's what you'll get. It's all to do with what we want. What do we really want? Then a student stands up and says, I don't want mouse turds. May I have the master's real gold? Yangshan says, if you try to bite down on the head of a flying arrow, you can try onto the ear of the ass, but you won't succeed. The year of the ass doesn't exist, by the way. There's the 12 Chinese signs of the zodiac. There's no ass in there. So he's saying is, you can try for the rest of your lives, and if you're trying to bite on something that you can't grasp, like an arrow going fast, you're not going to succeed. At this, the monk had no response. And Yangshan said, if you want to exchange something, we can make a deal. If you don't want to exchange anything, then we can't. Another translation of this says, business depends on demand. He's bringing us back to what is it that we want? What are we looking for? Are we willing to exchange our delusion and our suffering for awakening? Unless we're willing to give up our delusions, we can't awaken. Let them go. He continues, if I truly speak of Zen, then there won't be a single companion at your side. How can this be if there's 500 or 700 in the assembly? If I talk about this and that and you strain your neck trying to pick something up, then it would be like fooling a little child with an empty hand. There's nothing authentic about it. Today I'm clarifying what is holy, which is not a matter of collecting and calming the mind. Instead, you must practice to realize the true sea of self-nature. This first statement he makes can be taken in two different ways. He says, if I truly speak of Zen, then there won't be a single companion at your side. One way of understanding this is he's saying that there are very few who really want to hear the truth. They're going to be much more comfortable with easy explanations. So not many people will be around, they won't be listening if I speak of the highest truth, because it's going to push them back on themselves. Or another way of understanding this is if he's saying, if you really hear what I'm saying, there won't be anybody else in the room. There won't be any other. It'll just be you. There won't be a single companion at your side. This is another way of understanding this. Then he says, if I talk about this and that, you strain your neck trying to pick something up, then that's not what this is all about. It's not a matter of grasping something. Then he goes on, what's the use of the 3 clarifications or the 6 understandings? These are different teaching formulations. We have all these things in Buddhism which are gathered into groups. We don't have to go in them, but the 6, just one to give an example, the 6 understandings is the 6 sort of supernatural understandings that you can have if you do meditation. He's saying these are pointless. Get rid of them. What I speak of is the ultimate sacred matter. If right now you want to know mind and arrive at the root, then arrive at the root. Don't worry about the tips of the branches. If you do this, then hereafter you will possess it yourself. But if you don't attain the root and just use your emotions to seek it, then you will never succeed. You'll never see what Master Yangshan spoke of, the place where ideas of mundane and sacred are exhausted, where matter and principle are united, and the true eternal body of the Tathagata is manifested. See here how he brings up the words that his own master spoke at his awakening, how deep they must have penetrated him at that point. So he's just encouraging us to go to the root, to disregard the branches and the leaves. It's the words and the teachings, and find out for ourselves where all these things come from. He says you don't just use your emotions to seek it. We need to go beyond our thoughts and feelings in our practice to a level deeper than these to understand true nature. Another story about Yangshan. This is giving us a taste of the Igyo style of encounter. A monk came to practice under Yangshan. He asked, "Does the master recognize written characters?" Yangshan said, "I recognize some." The monk then drew a circle in the air and acted as though he presented it to Yangshan. Yangshan acted as if to use his sleeves to erase it. The monk then made another circle in the air and presented it to Yangshan. Yangshan received the circle with both hands and then threw it behind him. The monk then stared at Yangshan. Yangshan looked down. The monk then walked in a circle around Yangshan. Yangshan hit the monk with his staff. The monk then went out. Interesting, we hear about the Yigyo school being more gentle, but here, obviously, when necessary, Yangshan resorts to more extreme teaching methods. Because the monk's not getting it. He's not getting it. He's got to throw it all out. He goes back and again over to his circle. We'll switch now to a little bit of material about Yangshan. Yangshan was Yangshan's teacher. His Japanese name is Isan Ryu, and he was a disciple of the great Baizhang. And there are many stories about him and Yangshan and others. One of the most famous is the story of Yangshan's enlightenment under Baizhang. Once, while Yangshan was acting as attendant to Baizhang, Baizhang asked him, "Who's there?" Lingyo, this other name, said, "Me." Baizhang then said to him, "Stick a poker in the fire and see if there is any fire left in it." Lingyo did so and said, "There's no fire left." Baizhang then took the poker himself and, sticking it deep into the stove, pulled out some hot embers. Showing them to Lingyo, he said, "You said there was no fire left, but what about this?" Upon hearing these words, Guishan experienced great enlightenment. He then bowed and made his realization known to Baizhang. Baizhang said, "What you've experienced is a temporary fork in the road. In the scripture it says, if you want to understand the meaning of Buddha nature, then you should look in the realm of temporal causation. When it expresses itself, it is like delusion suddenly turning into enlightenment, like remembering something that was forgotten and realizing the self and other things do not come from some other place. Thus, an ancient teacher said, enlightenment is but the same as non-enlightenment, without mind and without dharmas. It is just this mind that does not hold to ideas of emptiness, delusion, mundane or sacred. It is the original mind dharma that is of itself perfect and complete. Having it arrived at this, you must uphold and sustain it." So Guishan has this experience, and probably with great intensity presents his understanding, and then Baizhang basically could say puts a damper on this bright ember by saying, "This is just a fork in the road." Now you've got to do the work, continue to do the work. But this is a beautiful image, this image of poking out the ember that we can use to remind us in moments of dryness and barrenness in our practice, which we all face at times, that it's just a matter of poking out that ember. It's always there. Our true nature is an ember that never is extinguished. Ashes are never completely cold. And just a little follow-up story to this experience of Guishan's. The next day, so this is the day after this experience, Guishan accompanied Baizhang to do work on the mountain. Baizhang said, "Did you bring fire?" Guishan said, "I brought it." Baizhang said, "Where is it?" Guishan picked up a piece of firewood and whistled twice, then handed the piece of wood to Baizhang. Baizhang said, "Like a termite eating wood." So this bit of wood, not burning, just a plain bit of wood. Its spark was right there in the wood. How could he not bring it with him? He was burning himself. And then Baizhang's response, like a termite eating wood. Termite, of course, is right embedded in the wood. He is wood, really, when you think about it. That's his entire diet, is wood. Like a termite eating wood. like a caterpillar inside a cabbage, like a fish in the sea. Now let's go back to the case and to Keizan's, also to Keizan's commentary. So again, a monk asks Zen Master Yangshan Huiji, can ultimate reality teach about itself? Yangshan said, there's nothing I can tell you about it, but there is someone else who can. The monk said, where is this one who can teach it? Yangshan took a cushion When Kuei-shan heard about it, he said, Huichi brings out the activity of a sword. Keizan makes some really pertinent comments to this. Now, Keizan was 3 generations after Dogen, so his dates are 1268 to 1325. And he's considered the second most important Japanese Soto Zen master after Dogen, and he put together the Denko Roku. So this is what Keizan says. This monk wasn't afraid to lose his life to that sword, and so he spoke up. Yes, this is the first point. Keizan's pointing to the importance of asking, of not being afraid to lose one's life to that sword, to be brave enough to ask your question. Maybe it's a silly question. It doesn't matter. Asking it, you'll find out. You'll get an answer of some kind. So sticking your neck out, being ready and willing to stick your neck out. Ask the question. Keizan then says, Yangshan didn't miss with the sword. He cut off the man's head before he knew he was cut. What's he cutting off? He's cutting off all the avenues that the monk has that are outside him. He wants to know where he can go to get the teaching. Doesn't have to go anywhere. In just that moment, when he pushes the cushion forward, there is such subtlety. Right here. Can that cushion really be the one with the answer? It's just a cushion, isn't it? Is it really a cushion that he's pushing forward? What's he saying? This is not a difficult koan. He's inviting the monk to be the one who can teach it. But also the whole truth is right there in that pushing forward the cushion. It's all right there. Can you see it? What about pushing it forward? Is that the one? Says Keizo. He adds, right here, how do you understand it? Look, I'm pushing a cushion forward now, but do you really see it? Like this. And as he pushes it forward, he whistles. And then his last words are, look into it. That's our job. That's our job as Zen practitioners. To look into it. To look into ourselves. To sit. To sit. To stay with whatever is. That's our job. Came across recently a wonderful article by Pema Chodron about sitting, about learning to stay, especially with our vulnerability. And this seems to be the theme of her teaching. If you listen to the titles of her books, you get this clearly. She's got one called The Wisdom of No Escape, Start Where You Are. Or there's two books. Wisdom of No Escape, Start Where You Are, When Things Fall Apart, Heart Advice for Difficult Times, and her latest one is The Places That Scare You, A Guide to Fearlessness in Difficult Times. So her whole point is that we need to learn to stick with our vulnerability, to be with our pain, to be with our fear, and look at that. That's what is at this moment. And it's much easier to do this when we're sitting still. We can begin to see things more clearly. And that's why we emphasize sitting, because we have a better chance to see what's going on. And then with that greater clarity that we get from sitting, we can take that into other situations where it's more difficult because there's more going on. And I think probably the reason why this is her theme, why she hammers at this, is because she needs to, in our Western consumer culture, which is telling us all the times, escape, get away from your vulnerability, be powerful. Be in control. Look at car advertisements. These things work on us subliminally, and we need to remind ourselves of what will really help, what will really make a difference. She says that it's helpful to question ourselves. Why do we meditate? Why should we bother to do this difficult practice? And she says we need to understand that meditation is not just about feeling good. To think that this is why we meditate is to set ourselves up for failure. We'll assume that we're doing it wrong almost every time we sit down. Even the most settled meditator experiences psychological and physical pain. Meditation takes us just as we are, with our confusion and our sanity. This is complete acceptance of ourselves as we are. This is called Maitri. This is more commonly known as metta, loving kindness. A simple, direct relationship with our being. trying to fix ourselves is not helpful. This is a really important point. Many of us come to practice because we want to fix ourselves. But to want to fix ourselves implies a subtle kind of self-denigration. We imagine that there's something wrong. And it's part of the problem. If we simply sit with what's going on, then already that's something else. It's not the same as just being completely tangled up in our thoughts and feelings. She continues, does not trying to change mean we have to remain angry and addicted until the day we die? This is a reasonable question. Trying to change ourselves doesn't work in the long run because we're resisting our own energy. Self-improvement can have temporary results, but lasting transformation occurs only when we honor ourselves as the source of wisdom and compassion. We are, as the 8th century Buddhist master Shantideva pointed out, very much like a blind person who finds a jewel buried in a heap of garbage. It is right here, in our smelliest of stuff, that we discover the awakened heart of basic clarity and goodness, the completely open mind of bodhicitta. It is only when we begin to relax with ourselves, that as we are, that meditation becomes a transformative process. When we relate with ourselves without moralizing, without harshness, without deception, we finally let go of harmful patterns. Without metta, without loving kindness, renunciation of old habits becomes abusive. This is an important point. But relating this to our koan, we could say that Yangshan didn't push forward a bed of nails to this inquiring monk. He pushed forward a cushion. It's a place where we can find rest, ease, repose, but also a place where we are alert, not slack. This is expressed in our spine and sitting, this energetic spine, uprightness, which the cushion also facilitates for us. Without the cushion we slump. We can't sit upright without it. It's a seat of enlightenment, this cushion. In meditation, we discover our inherent restlessness. Sometimes we get up and leave. Sometimes we sit there, but our bodies wiggle and squirm and our minds go far away. This can be so uncomfortable that we feel it's impossible to stay. Yet this feeling can teach us not just about ourselves, but also about what it is to be human. All of us derive security and comfort from the imaginary world of memories and fantasies and plans. We really don't want to stay with the nakedness of our present experience. It goes against the grain to stay present. There are times when only gentleness and a sense of humor can give us the strength to settle down. When we really start to see what's going on in the mind, it can be pretty funny, really. The stories we make up about ourselves and about other people, things we imagine, and it helps to have this sense of lightness in relation to all this stuff. Later in the article she talks about a little slogan that they use in their practice, touch and go. when you notice your mind is on something else, you touch it in a sense by saying, this is thinking, this is not the practice. And then you let it go, and you go back. It's very light, very quick, not ponderous at all, just going back. As a saying going around, the reason why angels can fly is because they take themselves lightly. The pith instruction, she says, is stay, stay, just stay. Learning to stay with ourselves in meditation is like training a dog. If we train a dog by beating it, we'll end up with an obedient but very inflexible and rather terrified dog. The dog may obey when we say stay, come, roll over, or sit up, but he will also be neurotic and confused. By contrast, training with kindness results in someone who is flexible and confident, who doesn't become upset when situations are unpredictable and insecure. So whenever we wander off, we gently encourage ourselves to stay and settle down. Are we experiencing restlessness? Stay. Discursive mind? Stay. Are fear and loathing out of control? Stay. Aching knees and throbbing back? Stay. What's for lunch? Stay. What am I doing here? Stay. I can't stand this another minute. Stay. This is how to cultivate steadfastness. And this teaching is one of the reasons why we put a lot of emphasis in Zen on no moving. Because we get this opportunity to stay with whatever's going on, to sit with it, to see it. Well, our time is up, and I'm just going to finish off with Dogen and two passages from his Fukan Zazengi, recommendations for Zazen. The way is basically perfect and all-pervading. How could it be contingent upon practice and realization? The Dharma vehicle is free and untrammeled. What need is there for man's concentrated effort? Indeed, the whole body is far beyond the world's dust. Who could believe in a means to brush it clean? It is never apart from one right where one is. What is the use of going off here and there to practice? And yet, if there is the slightest discrepancy, the way is as distant as heaven from earth. If the least like or dislike arises, the mind is lost in confusion. You should therefore cease from practice based on intellectual understanding, pursuing words and following after speech, and learn the backward step that turns your light inwardly to illuminate yourself. Body and mind of themselves will drop away, and your original face will be manifest. If you want to attain suchness, then you should practice suchness without delay. We'll stop there and recite the 4 vows.